All right, so we are now live. So, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. I know that you all are right in the middle of the ice storm right now. So, so
Yeah,
thank you so much for being here and taking some time to chat with me.
no worries at all. This is a nice diversion when you've been cooped up all day, and the only time I get to get out is when I take my dog out to go do her thing.
Yeah, right, right. Well, again, I just appreciate you being here, and I really asked not only you but a couple people who are either in law enforcement or former law enforcement to come and talk. And so the idea originally was to have some people together in the room, to kind of talk from different perspectives. But you live somewhere else, and then a couple people live other places, and it just, all of our schedules are so busy. So it was really hard to get
Sure.
everyone together. So I said I would reach out to you personally and just say, hey, can we talk? I mean, if I could just be totally transparent and address the elephant in the room, right? Right now, there is a lot of discussion surrounding law enforcement officers across the board.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. And so for me, I have not been able to do all the things. And so I would never try to presume to talk about things that I have no idea about. Right. I have never been in law enforcement, have never had a desire to be in law. I mean, I watch enough stuff on YouTube that I think that I could probably be, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yes.
And so I thought, as always, I try to talk to people who are in it or who have been in it, right?
Sure. Sure.
Um, and so, like I said, I mean, I've been watching the buzz right now, and there's a lot of talk about, if we could just say it, the ICE officers right now in different cities. And I don't know what the training looks like. I know from my research, they were exceptionalized back in 2002, I believe. But what we're seeing right now may be a little bit different, and I don't know what the training looks like. And so let's go to you personally and your training. I'll let you introduce yourself and what your background is. I'll let you do that first. Let's do that first.
Sure. Sure. Well, again, my name is Kevin Kendrick. I served on the Detroit Police Department for 3 years before joining the FBI in 1981, and served in the FBI over the course of 25 years in a variety of roles. I ended my career in the Bureau in 2006, where I was the special agent in charge of the FBI in Charlotte, North Carolina, and had responsibility for the entire state of North Carolina, which included 3 judicial districts. Got to work with a lot of different police departments, a lot of different task forces, and we had responsibility again for the entire state of North Carolina. I served at our FBI headquarters on 2 different occasions, and all told, when I retired from the FBI in 2006, it was such a satisfying experience. I did 25 years, retired at the age of 50, came to Midland, Michigan, as you know, at that point, and began work for Dow Corning, and worked there for 11 years before retiring permanently in North Carolina to be close to the grandkids
Yeah.
in 2017. So it was great. And one of the things that we prided ourselves on in the Bureau were the relationships that we were able to build and foster with police departments around the state, around the country. Uh,
Mhm.
9/11 was such a galvanizing influence for law enforcement in general. It brought us together. It brought us together for all the right reasons. It brought us together to fight a common adversary, that adversary being terrorism and the threat of terrorism. Our mission changed on September the 12th. Our
Mhm.
director at that time, Robert Mueller, who had been director since September the 1st, literally 10 days before,
Wow.
changed
Yeah.
the priorities to say, look, we can no longer afford to have something like this happen again. So that
Yeah.
was a real galvanizing event for us, and it brought us together, caused us to work very closely with our partners in local and state law enforcement and other federal partners, and the relationships were great.
Yeah.
They were absolutely great. We did a lot of good in those years.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, Kevin. Yeah, I didn't realize. I mean, I knew you served for a couple some years, but I didn't realize it was 25 years. And I would love to talk to you one day about that change from doing that and then working,
Yeah,
now
it's a big difference.
it looks like it would be such a big difference,
Yeah,
going behind a desk and all that kind of stuff. So just to be, like I said, to talk about it, I've been following a lot of stuff online, right? I've seen the stuff that you've wrote and just what people are writing right now. People are expressing how they feel, which is great and healthy. Um,
absolutely.
and I'm gonna try to ask the questions the best way I can. But again, not knowing, it's really hard sometimes to ask the questions, right? Because you don't know
Sure.
what you don't know, right? And so I would assume that across the board there is some baseline training, right? I mean, even though you all have these different departments and different sects that you have within law enforcement, right? It would
Yeah.
seem like there is a baseline training. Am I right in thinking that, or is that not right?
There is, however, there are different types of training by agency. For instance, the ICE and Border Patrol agents all train at what's known as a Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, or it's called the FLETC, in Glencoe, Georgia. That's where they do their training, and it's very peculiar to their job responsibilities.
Sure.
The FBI does its training in Quantico, Virginia.
Mhm.
Ours is 20 weeks of fairly intense training, but built into that is a considerable amount of time spent on Title 18, which is the section of the United States Code which our laws fall under,
Mhm.
and also constitutional law, what we can and can't do under the Constitution of this country, with an emphasis, of course, on search and seizures and interrogations and interviews and basic rights of people to assemble and to speak their mind. So there's a good deal of time spent on constitutional law. I can't really comment on the level of training that the ICE and Customs and Border Patrol officers receive. I have heard anecdotally that it used to be 6 months of training at the FLETC facility in Glencoe, and that it's been reduced to 6 weeks. I don't know if that's accurate or not. That's just something I heard anecdotally yesterday.
Right. And I've been trying to get in touch with someone that's actually in that
Yes,
department because it's a real question right now, right? People are wondering, um, what is the training, right? I mean, some people, I mean, and again, I am no expert in it because I've never done it, but I believe I am a bit of an expert because I watch it on YouTube. Okay.
there you go. There you go. If it's in Wikipedia or on YouTube, you got to be an expert.
And I watch enough videos where, at times it feels like, are people, are they equipped for this right now, right? And so and that is the question. I mean, the buzz right now is just, what is the training? And if I could get someone that's in that department to talk, I would love to hear more about it, because at times it does seem kind of questionable, if I can say that, right?
Well, I think the thing that's concerning most of all for me,
Yeah.
with my 25 years in the bureau and 3 years with Detroit, and spent a couple of years with Wayne State PD prior to that, my concern is it took us so long to build up that reservoir of trust within the communities that we were working in. One of
Mm.
my proudest accomplishments, for instance, was after being named agent in charge for our office here in Charlotte, was coming back in 2004 and being able to have fairly good relations with um, our Islamic community. And that
Mm.
was really important to have.
Yeah.
But we had an opportunity to meet a few of the imams here, as well as a few of the Jewish leaders. And building that trust within these communities was important for fulfilling our mission at that time.
Yeah.
Um, I see an erosion of that trust now, and it's happening far too quickly. We're seeing people who just literally don't care for what's going on, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum. There are
Right.
people who are genuinely concerned about what they see as incursions against their constitutional rights to assemble and to protest peaceably. It's being characterized as rioting and interference, and there's no happy medium there, and that's just not healthy. It's not healthy for law enforcement, for the guys who are working patrol who have to go out there every single day and interact with the community, and they're just expectations of being able to be there for them, but also understanding the community, understanding that they have their job to do as well. So
Yeah.
that's something that's so concerning to me. This is hurting law enforcement overall in the long term.
No, I agree with you. I spoke to someone who is an LEO the other day, kind of asked me same type of questions, and they said the same thing, is that people right now are kind of lumping all law enforcement departments into one right now. And there's a very black and white thinking right now. And they feel like they are being kind of jeopardized, right, within their position within the community, or the work that they do because of what's happening right now. People are looking at everyone on a blanket, kind of spectrum. Yeah.
And even above that, I don't want to say above that, but on a different level,
Yeah.
is what I see as the politicization, politicization,
Oh,
that word,
that word too.
politicization of the FBI. You know, when the Renee Good incident happened, um, there was contact between the FBI in Minneapolis and local law enforcement, and I believe even with the ICE and Customs and Border Patrol folks. And it was, pardon
Mhm.
me, excuse me,
Bless you.
excuse me, but it was it was the thought was that this was going to be investigated by the FBI, which is what would normally happen.
Okay? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
and shooting incident like that involving federal agencies, normally, I mean, ICE and Customs and Border Patrol would have their people there as well, but we have the ability to do forensic examinations. We're an independent party. You always want to have an independent party conducting those types of investigations.
Mhm.
So we would have our people there actually collecting the evidence. We'd have our evidence response team there, and those people would be collecting all of the evidence, doing the measurements, taking photographs. But that, of course, requires that that scene be preserved from the time that shooting occurs until the time that an investigative team can be assembled and can get out there and actually conduct the investigation. But very early on, the FBI was told, no, you're not going to investigate this. If there is an investigation, it's going to be conducted internally by Customs and Border Patrol and ICE. And then you had, of course, the statements from the head of the Department of Homeland Security, Christy Nome, who said that it was an act of domestic terrorism and that no investigation would be conducted. I think we had the associated the number two official with the Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, who said later that it was not necessary to conduct an investigation after this shooting in which a civilian was killed. Um, and that flies in the face of everything that I have ever known. There's
Mhm.
always an investigation, always. There are no exceptions to this because we want to be transparent with the public. That's how you build trust. That's how you build community. When you start making these arbitrary decisions about investigating or not investigating, you lose the trust.
Mhm.
And that doesn't bode well for law enforcement or our ability to conduct meaningful investigations with the help and the assistance of the people that we are here for. We are the public servants. We should be doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's yes, yes. So much to say about that, right?
Hmm.
It's so much to say because I think that right now, in talking with people, people are kind of afraid of what does the next step look like, right? What is this? Where is this going to? Especially just kind of in reaction or I guess in reply to what you just said, that typically this is what happens. And I guess that's where I'm trying to get to. Typically, there is a certain type of order of events, right?
Yes.
That are not happening now. And so what is the next what does this look like going forward? And I think that's the part that people are concerned about, afraid about, and this idea that, yeah, go ahead. What's the next step? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the part that's concerning to a lot of us on the retired side because we're literally in waters that we've never been in before. We've never chartered or navigated these waters before. This is all so very different and so very new, and it feels so inconsistent with what we've done in the past.
Mhm.
The other thing too is that there's a trickle down impact. Uh,
Okay.
I heard just a few days ago after, well, actually, yeah, it was a few days ago that after the incident involving Renee Good, the supervisor of the squad that would have handled that shooting, um, and I don't know her name, but she's in the Minneapolis field office,
Mhm.
decided to retire. We've already had five or six assistant U.S. attorneys resign from the Department of Justice office there, from the United States Attorney's office there. So we've
Right.
lost all of that talent. They're gone. The cases that they were investigating are going to be reassigned. That's going to delay prosecutions. It could potentially jeopardize prosecutions because these folks were the subject matter experts on that bevy of cases that will now have to go to other personnel who are probably already fully staffed as well. So there's going to be that. But you also have this FBI supervisor who has decided to resign because she felt apparently as if the carpet was being pulled out from under her. And
Mhm.
she was the in charge of the corruption squad that was handling all of the fraud investigations that seem to be kind of dominating the financial news in Minnesota.
Mhm.
So you lose that expertise.
Yeah.
There's that trickle down impact when we have things that don't go in the order that we're used to them going in, and that serves no one.
Mhm. Mhm.
Serves absolutely no one. It certainly doesn't serve the citizens of the state of Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah. Kevin, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. I want to ask you something more about your personal walk and journey through being in the FBI. Like, do
Yes,
you have, I mean, and I ask this because, we have had a couple of officer involved shootings. And for someone who is what's considered a civilian, like I said, I've never been in any type of law enforcement. And so I don't know what the training looks like or how you're supposed to respond. Again, I watch things, I see things, I read things, and stuff happens in 2, 3 seconds, right? I mean, it happens very quickly. You have
happens
to
very quickly. Yes,
pause and try to like analyze every millisecond, right? Because it goes that quickly.
yes.
Have you, and you, of course, you can share what you want to share or don't share what it's totally up to you. But have you ever been in a situation where you've had to draw your gun and make a decision, right? And say, what am I going to do in this second? Because from somebody that tries to think, and I'm asking that question, but I want to preface it with from someone who tries to think about different perspectives, right? I can't imagine within a millisecond, right, having to decide my next like it's like my next part of my life. Some people say when certain things happen, traumatic things happen, it's
Yes,
like whatever was before that part of that part in my life and after. That's how their life is kind of divided because it's so traumatic, right? You have to make
absolutely.
these yeah, you have to make these decisions very quickly. Have you ever been involved in that? And what did it look like? What does that look like from your perspective who've been in it for and out in the field for so many years?
I've never been in a shooting incident as an FBI agent.
Mhm.
25 years, never fired my gun in offense or or defense other than training. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
because I've seen what it can do to people who have been in those situations. Now, I did have several shooting incidents when I was on the Detroit Police Department because it's a completely different job.
Yeah.
And one of those I even spoke about in a social media post and what it felt like in that moment. I mean, I'm literally on the scene of an accident, and a guy drives up on the sidewalk, runs over the foot of a child who was
Mm,
standing there watching us investigate the accident. And I'm walking over to his car, and he pulled a gun on me. And I had a clipboard in one hand and a pen in the other, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not supposed to be happening. Why is this guy who just ran over a child's foot
mm,
pointing a gun at me? And it was getting dark. There were lots of people around, and it scared the bejesus out of me. I'll be honest with you.
mhm,
And all I could do was have my training kick in, where I pulled my own gun out. It seemed like it took forever, and I had my gun on him,
mhm.
and I could see because his car dome light was on that there were people in that car.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So my sight picture was no, there was a person in the passenger side, but there were two other people in the back seat. And as I found out later, they were two children.
Mm, mm,
So I did not pull the trigger on that. He could have shot me very easily. And
mhm.
fortunately, he chose not to. But there was no way I was going to pull the trigger with that kind of a sight picture. And those
Yeah.
are the things you have to take into consideration. People like to think that they're going to do this or do that when they're confronted with these situations. But our training includes the reality that
Mhm,
once you pull that trigger, you are committed to that decision. That bullet doesn't know where it's going to end.
mhm.
If it ends up in the wrong person, then that is on you as the person who made that decision.
Mhm.
So, being a responsible gun owner is so important.
Yeah.
We can't just say, hey, we're going to go out there and Wild West it. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate you for sharing that. Yeah. I always wonder, right? Because, like I said, I'm not in it. And I mean, all of us can say, like you said, what we would do and how we would act, and you don't know. But people who have actually been out there, I just try to kind of glean a little bit from you all and just understand again the process. And I'm sure in that moment, even what you just spoke about, there was so much that went through your head within
Absolutely.
seconds. I mean, and like you said, this idea that it felt like it took forever for your gun to even be pulled out because that's how time happens when we're in those situations. I was assumed, right? And
Absolutely.
so,
And we will share with you that I've
yeah,
seen one of the things that the FBI did very well is after a shooting incident, in addition to all of the investigation that goes into determining whether or not it was a good shoot, um, there's a team of investigators that come in from our inspection division that handle every every shooting incident involving the FBI. So
okay,
there's no connection with the field office or the agents that are involved. These are all impartial third party assessors. And but one of the things they do after the shooting is over, we have what's known as a critical stress debrief, where
mm,
we have medical professionals come in and all of the parties that were involved in that shooting. You don't necessarily have to be the person that pulled the trigger, but if you were part of the team that made the entry into the building where the shooting occurred, yes, you can sit in on this critical stress debriefing and get the psychological help, and you just get to talk about it and your feelings. And I've seen guys break down in these things.
I
These
would imagine, yeah.
people think that this is something that you just go home and reload your magazine and life goes on. No. Most people take um, the shooting of another person, especially when it involves a homicide. And by homicide, I don't mean murder. I mean a homicide is legally when one person is killed by another person.
Person,
Um,
yeah.
it can be justified, but typically there's some real psychological adjustment that has to take place.
Do you think enough of that happens afterwards? I'm just curious. Do you think enough of that happens? Because I talked to someone a couple years ago that used to be a former sergeant, and we talked about that, the PTSD that comes from that,
Yep.
and if officers are really kind of nurtured and cared for properly after that.
I think a lot of it depends on the department. I really
Sure.
do.
Yeah.
I think, I think we did it very well in the FBI. But, we didn't have shootings every day either.
Sure.
Our
Sure.
shootings were few and far between because we have the luxury of being able to plan our arrest for the most part. And we do so in a manner that minimizes risk to the individuals that we're trying to arrest, any other people that might be around, and also to our own members. So we try to do it with safety at the front of the equation. But one of the things we also did when I was, for instance, if I had to deploy my SWAT team on an arrest, it was just second nature. We would have someone there who was medically trained in the
Sure.
event that there was someone hurt, whether it was the subject or a witness or another agent. We would have a medic there. We would know where the nearest hospital was, and if need be, we would transport that person to a hospital if there were an injury. But you
Yeah.
go over all of these things before that happens. You
Hmm.
don't have to figure this stuff out at the last second.
Hmm.
So yes, cases are important. Yeah, it's just we can't forget about the people because no one should ever want to intentionally kill another person.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your insight. I always respect your point of view and
Thank you.
in your journey. I mean, like I said, you have done things that don't have any desire to do. So I appreciate the people that do different things, right? And
Well,
so
thank you.
yeah, I guess in closing, what do you have any closing words? What do you what
Yeah, I think
I'm trying to figure out how to frame that. Yeah, yeah,
the thing that motivates me, and I've been people have said, why do you fixate on this? Why are you so concerned about the state of democracy in our country? And I said, hey, it's not about me. My days are over for the
mhm,
most part. I've lived a wonderful life. I've
mhm,
been very fortunate, very blessed, but it's all about my grandkids at this point.
mhm.
When I see what's happening and what I see is the diminution of civil rights and us rolling back things that I thought were here for good. And now we're having to, again, incrementally re-earn these steps that have been taken by other generations. It's frustrating to me.
Yeah,
And I really, really want to see my children and my grandchildren not have to go through some of these same things that my my parents and my grandparents had to go through.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
we
Do you,
can do better. We keep saying this is not us as people. And at some point we've got to say, is that true?
mm, mhm,
Maybe this is us.
yeah,
If it is, then we've got a lot more work to do than any of us believe.
yeah. And I guess that's a question that I've had for in general, right? Is and watching everything that's happening right now. I mean, you have these questions of um, what are we becoming,
Yes.
right? What have we become? And is this who we have always been, right? And it's this idea of and I'm speaking from a humanity perspective, right? The idea of um valuing life, valuing um freedom, right? And valuing just people being able to live. And so that's I guess that's part of my question is, do you feel like that is part of the, rage or fear or outcry right now that people are grieving what they thought we were? Like maybe that's it, right? Maybe there's a grief process that's going on where people are coming to a realization that um, the human journey is a very complex journey, right?
It
And I think
is. There's
sometimes,
no doubt.
yeah, people have lived in this mindset of this utopia. And so, I mean, do you think that's maybe some of it like a grieving process of what
I,
they're
I
realizing?
I think it could be, Aaron. I think it could be a part of it, but I also think what we're seeing is a lot of people in this country who are saying it doesn't have to be this way.
Mhm.
These are people who are embracing the Constitution and all of its wonder and glory. It's not just about the Second Amendment. This is about the First and the Fourth and the Fifth. This is about the entire United States Constitution and embracing it by saying, you know what? If we don't agree with what our eyes are telling us, um, then we need to do something about it. And I think what you're seeing, people do have a legitimate right to protest.
Mhm.
And and I think that for me, that's the concerning part. I heard a press conference this afternoon with the head of Border Patrol, Greg Pavino is his name, and he seemed to he made it all about. He said we make choices in our life, and
Mhm.
sometimes those choices have consequences.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
seemed to completely ignore the right that people do have to assemble and to protest activities that they don't agree with.
Yeah.
But in his mind, I think he sees protest activity as being anti-law enforcement, which it may very well be, but he
Sure.
sees it as being rioters and something criminal, something of a terroristic nature, and that's the wrong position to take.
Yeah.
Uh, we can't have that dichotomy of thinking with people who are leading the men and women of these agencies. When
Yeah.
that happens, then yeah, it's not the right thing. And it for me, it represents a fundamental misunderstanding of what our Constitution is.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
would love to have a class on that one day and like have a couple people here to talk about just break down the Constitution because I do think it's being enacted differently than it was in days of old, so to speak, right? I mean, things are changing very quickly too. That's the thing to
very
say.
quickly, very
Things are
quickly.
changing very quickly. And yeah, things are changing very quickly. And so I am just trying to have this dialogue to understand more, right? Because
I
I don't.
appreciate you doing this. I really do. I think we need to have understanding. No one wants to have criminals running around our streets and
Sure,
committing crimes, and no one wants that. The
sure.
question is, but they also we have to understand the rights of the people as well. We don't want people randomly coming into our neighborhoods and our homes, uh, uh, having the effect of terrorizing people who are trying to go about everyday life. So it's one thing to conduct a targeted operation to apprehend someone who you suspect of being here in the country illegally. It's
Mhm.
quite another thing to walk up to people randomly and ask for papers. That that is just again not understanding the Constitution
Yeah,
um, and Fourth Amendment rights that people have. We need to be better. We need to do better, and the only way we can do that is by working together.
yeah. Yes, and for me, I have to understand more, right? Because I personally don't like to speak on things I don't know, right?
That's
I'm not going to speak on it and try to seem like I'm a professional on it. And I'm glad you said the one thing too about, none of us want um hardcore criminals running around just, all willy-nilly. And it's really interesting too, because a lot of the people who have, let me make sure I say this correctly, that have an issue with certain parts of law enforcement, kind of apprehending some criminals that are hardcore criminals, right? Um,
Mhm.
and those are people sometimes who've lived a very fluffy life, right? If you've lived in an area where you are surrounded by a lot of criminal activity, you understand sometimes where you want that removed, so to speak, right? But again, it goes back to revisiting what is the proper way to do that, right? We have to have some type of checks and balances in all walks of life, right? We have to have that. And so my question is trying to understand what are the checks, what are the balances, because I'm not in that world, but some things from what I see, right? It's like, is that a part of it? Right? Is that a part of it? And that is the questions that I have. Yeah, those are the questions that I have. And so I appreciate you for
No, no worries at all. I will let me just share this with you.
please.
We in the FBI, I had the opportunity to work with some really, really fine police officers in a variety of, not just our joint terrorism task forces, but our violent crimes task forces, where we had teams of people, especially when I was in the Detroit office,
Yeah.
who worked tirelessly to get the worst of the worst. That's what these guys did. They didn't go to a particular neighborhood to find a person and just stop and ask people randomly on the street who they were. They did actual investigations. They looked at telephone records. They talked to
Right.
sources. They did the work. They put in the work to find out where this person was. And then if they got some indication that the person was at a particular home or a particular apartment, you know what? We would do the work. You get the arrest warrant, you get the search warrant, and then
Yeah.
you execute at that particular place. It was truly targeted. It
Yeah.
wasn't random like what we're seeing now.
And then the question is it random? I mean, in the sense, like, I guess what I'm saying is that they are, it does not seem like they are going up to everybody, right?
No,
They're,
they're not going up to everybody.
and
They're
that is
a
that
little
is
bit of profiling.
yeah, and that is the part that is very interesting to me, right? And then that is also a part of it that I can see why people are fearful or have concern, right? And so the question then is, what is the remedy, right? How do we, what do we do? And and what do you do, can you do, right? And that is the, I think that is the question that a lot of people have right now that I'm talking to, is they feel hopeless, right? They feel like,
Yes.
well, what do we do? How do we combat this, so to speak? And again, this is not even, I mean, these are not always people that are necessarily anti-law enforcement. Like, they're
Oh,
not
right.
anti, it's just the matter of, again, back to that checks and balances, and are we having that? And then who applies that? Who is the one that sets the standard for the checks and balances? And that's the part that I have some questions about, because it's not clear. And
There's a big part of this that's missing, Aaron, is accountability. It
yeah,
is accountability matters. If people don't know who the officers and the agents are who are descending on their neighborhoods because they're not wearing name tags, they're
yeah,
not, the faces are for the most part covered. We
mhm,
have literally no idea who these people are, and
yeah.
to that to that end, there's precious little accountability for these folks.
Yeah, that is a question. That is
So
that
it's really, really difficult. It's difficult for even people coming in today. I heard that the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in Minnesota uh, is trying to do the investigation of the shooting, yesterday's shooting, but they actually had to get warrants from a judge to actually collect evidence in the street because there's no cooperation there from Customs and Border Patrol and ICE, and that's unfortunate. It's
it is.
un
It is, because it goes back to, like you said, just kind of that standard baseline
yes,
imbalances, right? Where we have to come in and ask some questions, do some investigations.
and work
Um,
together.
Yeah, and work together, and that's the part I think that is the part that could be potentially scary is because I think about I always try to think about it from, like, my vantage, right? And if
Mhm.
I'm, going into my home and I, lock my door and then someone, bangs through or comes through or, comes up to me in the driveway and starts demanding me to get in their van, um, what power do I have to question and to say, well, I don't know who you are. What are you doing? And so that is the part that I think is concerning is potentially where someone could pretend to be, in that department and you
Absolutely.
take
Yeah.
so and
It's
I
a
think
real concern for people.
yeah, yeah. So and I don't think we have an answer for what's next, right? We're living
Just
this and
I wish I did. I think the only thing that will happen now is that the more that people um, kind of protest, whether, and by protest I mean actually physically going out and protesting, or through letter writing campaigns and telephone calls and contacting congressional representatives. This is how we are going to have to push back against what we're seeing now. Because what we're seeing now, again, this has nothing to do with political beliefs. What we're seeing now is people feeling extremely frustrated that their voices are not being heard and that their rights are being violated systemically. And that's just not acceptable as Americans. At least I don't believe it's acceptable.
mm. Kevin, thank you so much. I appreciate you
Oh,
and
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, thanks for answering some of my questions, and and I try to ask questions on behalf of people that I've talked to, right? I mean, people have um, real concerns, right? And
Sure.
I'm a person that I always believe in uh, not just talking about it, right? Like, what can I actually do to help? And yeah, right now for me, I'm trying to kind of listen and create space, right, for people to share their either frustration and also like I talk to people who are very much pro law enforcement, pro ICE right now, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's just interesting. I've talked to people on both sides of this, and I say side very loosely, right? We know there's so many different parts to this, right? And
absolutely.
so,
Yes.
and in doing that, it allows me to better understand
Yes.
and to also ask the right questions and to know what the heck I'm talking about because I don't want to just be saying stuff. You know what I mean? And
Sure. Absolutely. I
I
think one
try.
of the dangers that we have, however, and I say this about anyone, is I am very pro law enforcement. I am on my town's citizens police advisory committee. I love our chief. I love what he's doing with the police department down here.
Yeah,
He's just a very, very good guy. The one thing that I think we as Americans have to really guard against is this idea you can love something and still be critical of it.
mm, mm,
When we say that this love is an all-encompassing love, and like when you say my country, right or wrong, well, not so far. When
yeah,
you're wrong, you're wrong. It
mm,
doesn't matter who you are. I think part of being a responsible adult and being a responsible citizen is having the ability and having the courage, if you will, to say, you know what, I messed up. And
yeah,
I used to tell when I was in the FBI, I used to tell my folks every single. I remember my first week on the job, I made a huge mistake when
yeah,
I was the SAC of the Charlotte office. I went and recommitted ourselves to a public corruption case in another jurisdiction without talking to the agents first. And then
mhm,
when I came back to the office, they told me, "Well, boss, here's why we weren't involved in this investigation anymore." So you
mhm,
know what? My bad. And I use that as an object example to my supervisors to say never ever compound something that's wrong by
yeah,
saying, you know what, no, I'm going to do it anyway. I came back, listened to why we had gotten out of the case, and I called up my counterpart in the State Bureau of Investigation, and I said, you know what, I misspoke. We cannot rejoin this investigation.
yeah,
And shame on me for speaking before I had all of the facts. But
yeah,
that we can't compound mistakes. when we see mistakes made, we have to take responsibility for them.
Yeah.
That's how you learn. That's
Yeah.
how you grow.
Yeah.
When
And
we
that
say anything right or wrong, no, no.
yeah, and that's the tricky and interesting part, right? And when people, how do I want to say this? That is the tricky part when getting to that baseline of wrong or right, right? If you have people that believe that something is right, right, then they don't feel like they have to have any type of accountability because they're right,
They're
right?
right.
You have
Yep,
people on the other end that believe is, they're wrong. And then it's like, well, you need to be held accountable for this. And so that is the tricky part of a lot of things that we are kind of experiencing right now, right? This idea,
exactly.
people are seeing things in two different realities. And so in that, the conversation can get a little bit skewed because we're still debating. We're, as a collective, we're still debating the right and wrong part of it, right? And
Exactly.
so we can't even get to another level of the next part of dialogue or connectivity because we're still here. You get what I'm saying? And that is the part
And you're absolutely right.
yeah,
And to me, that's just fundamental. It's fundamental to any discussion. It's fundamental to any movement forward on a particular issue. There has
yeah,
to be a meeting of the minds on whether or not something is right or wrong. What constitutes facts? Because once we start diverting on those two things, then you'll never have a meeting of the minds.
yeah. And people will, people say to me, well, they're just wrong.
Yeah,
And I said, that's subjective though. And that's the point. That's the point that people don't understand. No matter how much we, they, us, whoever believe something, right? If the other person believes the stark opposite, how do we even go to that second level of
that's
conversation?
exactly right. Yep,
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah, yeah. Excuse me, my allergies have been going.
That's my problem. Yeah.
Oh my good. I was telling somebody, I said typically I have really bad allergies in spring, summer, and
Yeah.
then fall a little bit because of that new,
Right.
then winter they go away. But this year it has been like not, it's just continual. And so it just drives me nuts because I'm
Mine are 24/7.
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah, yeah.
taking Claritin D every single day.
Well, Kevin, I
All
appreciate
right.
you and the
No, I appreciate
encouragement
you.
of
And
the ice storm. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing, Aaron. I really appreciate it. And just wish you the best. It's such a divisive situation that we're in, but
Yeah.
it's not going to get any better if we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you for trying to tee up the conversations and to get people at least talking about it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. I mean, I am a firm believer. I was talking to someone earlier that I'm a firm believer in releasing, right?
Yeah,
It's the idea that if we just keep it all bottled up, we just become so hardened and angry, right? Or vice versa, right? It's just in us. And so it is okay for us to put language to things. It's okay for us to talk about it. We have to do that, right? We have
you
to
have
do
to.
that.
Yep.
And and what that looks like is different for everybody, and that's okay. And but I appreciate people that are open and honest, right? That's the part that's hard though with this is that if people come in and aren't honest, then we can't really have a real conversation, right?
It's
Because
hard. It's hard. Yeah,
yeah, but if
that's
somebody
exactly
is open
right.
to being, I always tell people, I said if a person tells me that they are, I mean, I could, I'll name different like a murderer or a racist or whatever.
Mhm.
I respect that more, right? I don't like it. I don't, agree with it, but I respect it more than someone that is kind of you know, uh,
Exactly.
pretending, right? If
Completely hear you.
yeah,
Yes.
we can be honest and talk. Let's go. I am open for it. I'm not judging you. I really want to hear
Yep.
your thought process. So I really do welcome honesty and transparency in conversation. And then we can hopefully just get a better understanding of our positions, right? And I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Aaron. I truly
Yes.
appreciate it.
You have a good night,
All
Kevin.
right, you too.
Yes. All right. Take
Take care. Bye
care.
bye.